Hello and welcome to another Ahead of the Curve show. Hope you guys have all had a great week so far. For this show, I'd like to welcome my guest, Phillipe Bergeron. I'm going to
Hello,
say
how are you?
the classic Quebecois kind of way. So, Phil, welcome to the show.
It's great to be here. It's awesome.
Well, really glad to have you here. So, Phil, can you tell me a little bit about your company, or actually about yourself, and kind of how you got into this crazy mess of projection mapping?
Wow. Well, the whole thing was based on a mistake.
A mistake.
Yeah, a mistake. So I was in my backyard, and that was, I'll never forget the date. It was January 17, 2009. And I was projecting an image on my pond. I was an actor back then, so I was just using this cheap little 800 lumens projector. But what I was projecting was not a line, was not mapped. It was just a generic image.
So you're just throwing light out to see how it works and see how it reacts.
Exactly. And I had, believe it or not, I had Apple Works open. Now that ages me a lot, but it was there was a photo, like a cheap Photoshop equivalent, and I touched the mouse by mistake, and I painted a rock with light, and that changed my life. I thought I was Edison, like I had invented this. I did. In retrospect,
something new, light.
So I went, wow, this is awesome. What is this? What did I just do? I merged real and virtual worlds. And the following day, I talked to my wife, Julia. I said, we got to start a company, painting the landscape, PaintScaping. And that's how it was born.
That's crazy. That's a great story, too. So you've been around for a long time. You've probably seen a lot, done and seen a lot of different projects. What has been one of the most challenging projects that you've actually come across to date?
You mean challenging for us, one of our projects?
Yeah, one of your projects.
Well, maybe the last one, actually. I mean, the challenges are different. But the last one, the one where we mapped, an operational rocket at Cape Canaveral, that in many ways was extremely challenging because they were requiring things. Remember that the projectors were inside the pad. That means that nothing separates us from the rocket physically. We could go and touch the rocket. So that's how close we were. So they asked us, for example, not to emit radio frequencies from the projectors. We had never been asked that before. We had to call Christine. But the challenges are different for every job. The big jobs like Park MGM, which is a huge mapping. We had 28 barcodes. The challenges there were actually, that was not too bad of a job, surprisingly. There was no challenge on this one.
So talking about the rocket, I think the rocket's a really fun one because I was kind of in on the earlier phases of that project. When you called up as basically came in to help you as a consultant more at that time. I know that it was just a hassle to be able to even get on site. You had to have everything screened before you were even allowed to apply for the permit to get on site itself, because it's an active military base that a lot of people don't actually know. It was quite the trip to even get on there. And I remember there were a lot of challenges that you mentioned just about even getting the equipment past security, onto the site. So where were some of the bigger challenges that you also had, just kind of going back to like the logistics and being able to know what you can and cannot do? I mean, you were talking about even having challenges with, being close to the rocket and being able to get into different areas where you might have had a more difficult time getting equipment where it needed to go. So how did you overcome some of those obstacles?
Great question. Let me share with you first an image of the rocket not projected. So here you go. I don't know if you could share that. So this was our canvas, and the canvas was a Delta IV Heavy, which is the second most powerful rocket in the universe. Well, I would say on the planet, Who knows?
Yeah, let's not go to the universe yet, because we don't really know what else is out there.
Right. But in the known universe, let's put it this way. So we had to map this. The one of the challenge, like this structure around the rocket, is called the MST. And as you probably know, most of you geeks of the world, that it detaches from the rocket a few hours before the launch. It rolls back 300 feet so that the rocket is clear to launch. Originally, in 2018, we were supposed to map the MST as rolled back, separated from the rocket.
Yeah.
And this year, and you were there, and this year they called us, they said the MST will be in place because we'll map the day before the launch, which means that the canvas was much closer to us, which means that lenses had to be recalculated, projectors had to be replaced with more powerful projectors. So we used the Christie 45,000 lumens. Well, that's a powerful projector.
For the new RGB laser?
Yes, and they're awesome. I mean, wow, the colors are just brilliant in every way, shape, or form. But then the Cape Canaveral, the range had to approve the projectors, and we had to give different, what's our choice number one, what's our choice number two, and so on. So our choice number one was those Christie 45. Our number two was Barco 32K UDX, but I really wanted the 45.
Naturally.
Say that again?
Pardon?
What did you say?
I said naturally.
Naturally, of course. And I'm Canadian. Christie's Canadian. Come on. But also, my ulterior motive was that I knew it would excite Christie and it excite ULA to have these massively new projectors. So the challenge was, I mean, we're waiting for Cape Canaveral. When are they going to approve? When are they going to approve? Finally, they approved like maybe 6 weeks before the gig.
Well, I also remember there were some challenges just in the simple fact that it was a laser-based light source. And I remember that security definitely had a lot of issues in the fact that it was a laser-based light source, and it had to go through quite a rigorous amount of scrutiny before being approved to be utilized or approved on site as a laser-based product.
Yeah, because the word laser, unfortunately, the connotation of laser is that those lasers you see in concerts that are extremely concentrated, but these are very diffuse lasers. So one of our alternates was the older Barco HDF 30Ks, lamp-based, in case they weren't going to approve the lasers. So we had to move very fast at the very last minute.
How much time did you have to do the setup to the actual event itself? Did you have a number of days, or was it a number of hours? How quickly how much time did you have to get everything kind of up and running?
Well, this is usually a pretty standard. We usually ask for 3 days for the more complex jobs, the ones that have, say, 10 projectors and up. And for the smaller jobs, we usually ask for 2-day setup. So on the first day, you set up the projectors, you make sure you have power, that you have signal, right? I mean, the basic. And then you pre-align on day one. And then on day two, you invite the client, and believe it or not, the client will have notes on the content on day 0.
Yeah, that's not a surprise at all.
So they go, could you change this? I go, Mr. Client, the show's tomorrow. But yes, we could change it. We have a very interesting setup when we travel like this. I bring my big computer in my room or my hotel, and I do a lot of changes myself. But I also have a bunch of content creators across the globe, across the US. And we did that way before COVID, by the way. We were COVID ready in March because all our content creators are at their home for years. It's been like that for years. So they're ready. They're ready. On the day before, they say, you will get a call. Could make sure the render farm is ready to accommodate a re-render. So in this case, it was 3 days.
This is one of the cool things I love about projection mapping is, especially during these times, it's something that is still totally viable. I mean, yeah, you can draw large crowds, but those crowds can still be controlled. And I think that it's interesting that we don't see as much of it right now as you may have even when the industry was going stronger. I would have thought in a lot of ways it would be a really great method to be able to put up messaging, to communities, or even being able to, be used for companies, just being able to still be able to effectively do advertising and, create events that still have social distancing in mind.
Yeah, so, that's true. But I think mapping is changing in a way that the live event is not as important as the legacy online. Case in point is Cape Canaveral.
Sure.
There was 100 guests, VIP guests, which I was not allowed to ask any questions.
No?
Not even how are you? That's not true. I'm joking. But the legacy of the mapping was far more important. The press coverage afterwards. And I think this is changing in that direction where the legacy is more important. We have a few leads right now where we have virtually no guests. We also do a lot of set work, in the back behind actors and stuff, and that has no guests per se. I mean, you have a crew. An interesting story happened 2 weeks ago. We get this call to do a mapping in the desert. They have no money. Or very little. But we never say no, because we like to help if we can. We have jobs where we do make money, and we have jobs when we don't make money. And when we don't make money, what's in it? What's the benefit? Where we help a younger crew, a bunch of 20-year-old kids. So we decided, you know what, we're going to help. And we made our net profit was $850. So we went to the desert. That was 2 weeks ago. We shot. I wasn't there. One of my guys was there. And 4 days later, it was on Jimmy Fallon.
Oh, wow. See, that's...
And the artist was 070 Shake. She's an up-and-coming rapper, and I watched it going, that's what a great story. I mean, we're helping and we're not expecting anything, and then 4 days later, and they go and brag about it. So it's on our website if you guys are interested in seeing it.
That's awesome. I think that's one of the really interesting impacts as well. I think of these times, as you mentioned, there is a lot more people pushing content out into the online areas, and people are viewing a lot more content after it's been done, after it's been shot, and just kind of getting a lot more coverage on those things. Also talking about, we've been talking about virtual production a lot over the course of the last few months, of course, kind of being more of the hot ticket item for live event platforms to move to, during these times where you have to social distance. So it's really interesting just to kind of hear your perspective of these projection mapping events kind of being more purposed towards, using the content and the footage after the fact rather than seeing it in a live environment or in a live fashion.
Right. I mean, and live is okay too.
Live is awesome. I mean, if anybody's never seen it, it's incredible to be able to watch a huge building or a rocket or something inanimate normally just kind of come out and come to life. It's an incredible experience.
It's incredible, and you don't have that online. So that is something that is missing online, is the sheer scale of the mapping.
Pardon me? I said it's a spectacle.
It's a spectacle. It's a P.T. Barnum kind of spectacle. But I think the online experience, the only way you could truly experience the scale of mapping is through VR. Because if you are wearing a VR goggles and you are live and you are watching the event, then you can start to feel the scale, because VR can keep the relative scale and it is stereoscopic. So you can get a feel of scale. Until then, you're gonna have to imagine the scale. Like here's a good example. You're still sharing. Here's one of the rare image that do a feel. So this is the one we did for Britney Spears in Vegas, and that is the. Unless someone online will contradict me, and that's okay, you guys do that. We believe it is the largest U.S. mapping ever. Not worldwide. The Russians hold the record on this. We're gonna beat them, I promise, but maybe not before the end of the year. This one was 550 feet wide by 26 stories high. Now
that's a pretty good size. I would say America Smart is probably very close, if not maybe slightly larger.
Which one?
America Smart.
Where? Oh no, you mean in Chicago?
Yeah.
Oh no, we're much bigger. We calculated. Actually, the client called me. Believe it or not, they called me before the gig saying, "Are we bigger than that one?" And I calculated we're about 40,000 square feet bigger. Yeah, oh yeah, I did my research, Jeff.
I know you did.
So yeah, so this one was awesome. So in this case, in this particular case, the alive portion was almost just as important as the legacy of the show.
Well, yeah, in this aspect, I can definitely see that, because you've got the performance part that also goes with it, right? You've got Britney Spears there performing, and when you've got that kind of attraction that's already there, it's not like you're just throwing content up onto the building and promoting it. You've actually got an additional draw of having the live artists being there and performing.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. But whether or not, the question becomes whether or not there are live guests. If you're watching it at live, like it's like sports right now, right? It is live, but there are no audience. To me, mapping doesn't suffer as much as sports. I feel sports, unfortunately, there's a huge loss in not having an audience. Not so in mapping. I think in mapping, if you have no audience, but it is live, there you still get a sense of the momentum, the scale to a certain extent.
Well, again, it kind of brings in that draw. It's something that I think that you can utilize in ways to draw people to a place or draw people to a certain object or attraction. But as you said, it could also be used more for promotional usage or for promotional materials, or being used as a PR act or stunt.
Oh, absolutely.
Terminology.
For those clients where the live guests is important, for example, a mall will not survive it unless they have physical people go there. So what they're doing now, we still get calls. We have a few Christmas shows coming up. So it's not as much as the other years, and we have new clients, surprisingly. But what they're doing now is, instead of so we don't charge for the number of shows per night. Whether the show plays 1 time or 10 times, we don't charge more, because it's just changing the loop, right? So we don't do that. So now clients, instead of playing it twice a night, will play 10 times a night on the half hour, for example, to have smaller crowds. And now what they're doing is they're selling pods per family. So you get a circle on the lawn or in front of the building where you go and you sit in that spot, and it's a pod for 4 people. And each pod is separated by 6 feet.
That's an actual real interesting concept. I'd love to actually hear from the audience as well. We just posted a question about mapping in an audience for sports. But it would be also interesting to hear, your thoughts and ideas on events inside of pods, and kind of coming back into live events and even spectacles to this size and magnitude. What your thoughts are on audience within pods, or have you ever gone to an event during these times where you've been separated or put into a pod? It'd be interesting to hear.
No,
the viewers. I'd love to hear the viewers' reaction on that.
Oh yeah, right. Yeah, that'd be great. But in the meantime, let's answer that question about sports. I do believe that projecting, say for example, the seats are already there. The seats are usually not ideal color for mapping. Not gonna lie, dark red and black.
Dark red, blue.
Dark blue, marine
black.
Blue. They're the worst possible color for mapping. So to all the arenas in the world, paint your seats white. Okay?
Or a light shade of gray.
A light shade of gray. Yeah, actually that's better, because you gotta get crisper blacks.
Just screen glue them all. Put screen glue on every one of them.
So if we could project on the seats without having to add cardboards ahead. And that's really the cheapest and most effective way to create a virtual crowd. And you could literally project the Zoom version or whatever of every audience. So it will evolve. I hope that I want to go back to watch a hockey game. I don't want my face projected on a seat.
On a seat.
But in the meantime, that's a good alternative to at least give the illusion that there's crowds. It was very jarring for me to watch a baseball game or basketball without an audience. You just lost so much.
Yeah, there's been some interesting ideas and theories on how that's being worked out now. But we've definitely talked about this as well in the past, about the whole, for sports, having the energy and being part of the game and being there. It's huge for the team's performance as well, and the way that they play. So it's been interesting, just, I'm not a big sports follower per se, but seeing some of the NBA kind of replays and stuff that's happening there, and just seeing some of the hockey games that posted just recently as well, and kind of going through a little bit of post-hockey season. It was interesting to kind of see the teams playing there. It just didn't feel the same.
No, it's not. So we could offer the greatest alternative to that, but that alternative is not nearly as good as live. So we'll see. What a year.
Yeah. I mean, as Holly said, actually, she was one of the artists that we had on here recently on the show. Hey, Holly, welcome back. And she's been projecting her audience directly onto the walls. Well, she's been doing her weekly show online as well. So I think that's a really interesting way to also be able to kind of bring the people back in, to your spectacle or your show.
Oh, absolutely, 100%. That's well done, Holly. Great. She's ahead of the curve.
She is ahead of the curve. She's absolutely ahead of the curve. So Phil, I wanted to talk to you as well a little bit about some of the mountain projection mapping that you did, and some of the stuff that you also did for the X Games, which I thought was really, really cool. And some of the interesting challenges that you may have had in projecting onto a mountain and finding areas to be able to do that. Also trying to, how does the projection work with the athletes as well, with them, and the safety precautions that you might have to take from some of those aerialists, and the snowboarders or skiers doing some of those more risky stunts or jumps. So
yeah, let me put a couple of examples of mountains. We'll start with a dry mountain, and then we'll go to a snow mountain. The challenges are different. So
mountain during the summertime, mountain during the winter.
So here you go. Could you see this one?
Yeah.
So this one was Sedona, that beautiful Sedona, the most mystical place on earth.
And hey, speaking of red.
Speaking of red, yeah, and that was my concern. Could you guys see my cursor moving?
No.
No. Okay. Well, you could see a little white horizontal sliver there, right? You know, in the middle of the mountain, right in the middle. So I told the client, I said, we're going to just project on that white part. It'll look awesome. They said no. So we ended up projecting on the entire mountain. And we did a train. So this is a little. We don't need audio at this point. Let me turn audio off. So we did a little train here. And this is me, actually. Yeah, here you go. This is me in my Warner Brothers jacket that I lost in Vegas. So anyway, these
hopefully you didn't gamble it away.
Right. These are 1232K UTX Barcos. So the challenge here in Sedona was that the throw, the distance between the projectors and the mountain was 1.1 kilometer.
Yeah, that's a pretty good distance.
That's a pretty good distance. So we had to use the longest lens available. So
you're looking at like give or take 3,600 feet from the lens to the mountain facade.
Yeah, that's right. So that was our longest throw ever. I'm challenging anyone if we think it's the longest throw ever, but tell us if I'm wrong, because I'd love to know what actually
You're
is.
going for the biggest and the longest.
That's it. I am P.T. Barnum. So that was very, very challenging. But the one thing that was not challenging, because we do have that challenge a lot, is to beat ambient light. Sedona is the darkest city in the world. It's a dark sky community. I don't know if you know the term, but you're not allowed to have any light.
For all of you amateur astronomers out there, those black sky communities are absolute like little gems for any astronomy buffs.
Yeah. So, and mappers, we love those. You know, because when we map in Vegas and we say we map on a MGM Resorts property, we can't knock at Caesars and say, "Excuse me, could you turn off your lights, please?" That's not going to happen.
Yeah.
So,
can you turn off your hotel? We don't want to see no light on your hotel
for 5 minutes. We're not asking for much. So that was not a challenge. That was awesome. Where to put the projectors was challenging. From a mapping standpoint, it's not that challenging in a sense that we try to map around, you know, for every job we do a photogrammetry session. For those who don't know what photogrammetry is we take about 100 photos of the canvas, including one photo from the POV of the projectors. We feed those 100 photos in a software called PhotoScan, and that creates a 3D model of the mountain. And for each photo taken, it creates a 3D camera inside that software. So for the photo we took from the projector, we're getting that magical 3D camera that matches the real life conditions, and we get free alignment relatively fast. So to do photogrammetry on this, I had to drive miles because you want different angles.
Yeah, you can do it from a drone.
Yeah, back then, 3 years ago, the drones still were already happening. Not as much as today, of course, but we didn't have a drone to do this. So I just drove, and then here's an interesting image. So this is more of that show, and this is the grid. You can see the beam of the projectors from the village here. But the beam was not as visible as it is in the photo. So it looked like a floating grid. So people who had no idea about the mapping and came into town saw this giant 500 feet floating grid in the sky. It looked quite unique. All right, let's talk about snow mapping. Sorry, guys.
No, that's all right.
Here we go. So this snow mapping was at Big Sky, which is to continue the big theme, is the biggest skiing in America, according to
We got three for three.
It is not the biggest ski resort. That's number 2, and they're pissed. Park City is number 1. But nevertheless, the challenge here, for example, if we look at when they land here, we could never project like dark stuff. It would always have to be lit for the safety of the guests. So
safety of the guests, and I'm sure the
safety of the snowboard.
Of the athletes as well.
Right. No, mostly the athletes. So if you look at the next clip, it's a drone shoot. So just look at the next clip here, right? This one. Woo, bang. Okay. So when they land here, originally this look was a Tron look, where mostly dark with white lines. They came up to us and said, no, you can't do that. So we inverted the Tron look. So now the Tron look, the lines are dark and everything else is white. And then another clip of that is, that was awesome, where we had boulders coming down here. So the challenge in a snow mountain, of course, temperatures, but I'm from Montreal, so I'm immune. Give me minus.
Yeah, pretty much. I used to be immune, but I've lived in Florida for too long now.
Yeah, you're a wimp now.
I've been wimpified.
This gig here in Quebec was, if you look on bottom left, that was the temperature that night.
Yeah, that's a little on the frigid side.
So everybody gathers behind the projectors, because those projectors emit a lot of heat. They become very popular.
Well, at least they used to.
Well, that's true. Lasers much less, which sucks when you're in the cold environment. I miss that part of the land-based.
Yeah, so, I imagine some of you probably have quite a few challenges as well, just to do with weather, especially doing a lot of outdoor mappings. You've got a lot of different conditions and environments that you're working in that require different encasements for the projectors, custom encasements for the projectors to keep them conditioned so that they're within operating temperatures. I'm sure. Well, I know that working in cold environments is pretty much the same thing, and it's also something that's very much, I think, overlooked in a lot of cases. That you've got these huge casings that you have to take these huge projectors and also encase them to keep them away from all the elements environmentally. And those encasements, it's pretty incredible how much technology goes into just building those, and how much money they are too. I mean, they're not cheap. You can spend a portion of a pretty good chunk of change to what you're paying for your projector in just the encasement.
Yeah. Let's do a little plug here. Tempest Lighting, which we've used quite a bit. They're probably the best company for enclosures for projectors. But what we do is if we have more than one projector, it's cheaper to build a custom cabin.
Yeah,
you don't want to buy an enclosure per projector. I think unless the projectors are physically separated, we try
they're being physically installed to be permanently mounted.
Yeah, but even permanently, if you build a cabin that, almost like a movie theater projection room, controlled, temperature control and all that stuff, it will be just as effective as enclosures if it's done right, of course. So
I guess there's a lot of variables and equations kind of come into play for that. But
yeah. Mm-hmm. Yeah. So I don't know if coming back to the projection on the mountain, we had a big crisis that night, and I want to do a shout out to Mike Cianciola on this one, because he's my main tech guy. Nothing will stop him. Don't try to stop Mike. We lose a projector 13 minutes before the show. We have a backup, but it's 2 feet of snow. We can't bring the backup in time. We had a board. He changed the board in the Barco. That's our Barco. and the MC is talking to 3,000 people trying to buy time. And 3 minutes before the show, Mike changes the board. It turns on. It's flawless. He goes, "Good to go."
Wow.
That is probably the closest we've been to a failure, but we've never failed. So far, so good.
I think, yeah, thankful. That's one of the inherent joys of show business, right? Is you have no idea what's going to end up happening moments before the shows. I think that's, again, why a lot of us look for redundancies, or especially in case of projection, trying to see if there's the budget factor, right? Willing to see if the client's actually willing to pay the additional money, but trying to double stack projectors and trying to double stack the alignment so that if one goes out, you still got a show. But
yeah, that's so important. Redundancy.
Sometimes a hard pitch to some of the customers that don't have the budget.
Yeah. Redundancy. Not a lot of clients ask us, "What's your redundancy?" 2 clients have asked us explicitly: Travelers Insurance, which I'm not saying, and
an insurance company. Go figure.
Yeah, that was our project for Travelers. It was 8 UDX, and then the other one, of course, Cape Canaveral. That I wasn't surprised, because they live in the redundancy world.
Yeah, the redundancy of redundancy world.
Yeah, so that's why when we double stack, and you hit the nail on the head, is that double stacking gives you more lumens.
Yeah.
But even more importantly, redundancy. And we have redundancy at every level, not just in projectors, but media players, even cables. Mike yells at me because I've got redundancy in the distros, which are little boxes near the power panel. He goes, that never dies. You don't need it. I go, you know what? I'm going to have redundancy everywhere, Mike.
It totally makes sense.
What?
I said that totally makes sense.
Oh yeah, it's when you don't have redundancy that it fails. It's the universe. If you have redundancy, it doesn't fail. So when you don't have redundancy, that it fails.
That's like nature's law, right? That's how it's always going to work.
It's weird. It's like technology knows. Technology watches you. You did not give me redundancy. I will punish you.
So I wanted to touch a little bit on some of the technology as well, because you get a lot of people look at projection mapping as something that's crazy expensive and really hard to do. And I think that people have to have an understanding that it is difficult to do. It definitely takes a lot of time and some planning, but it depends. I guess it depends on what extent you want to do it. But there's a lot of tools out there now that make it a lot more affordable and a lot more achievable to be able to do at home. And I thought one of the really interesting things that you mentioned to me in the past, like going back to the rocket launch and mapping project, was the playback system that you had used for that. You didn't use anything fancy. You used something pretty easily attainable by just about everybody, actually. So
yeah, we've used a lot of different media players over the years. One of them is the Alcorn McBride right here. I just put that to look like.
I won't say anything. I'll look away.
Right. I put that just to look like I know what I'm doing. Yeah, we use the Alcorn quite a bit. The Alcorn is, I'm not going to say dumb, because they're not going to like that, but it is a simple, extremely reliable way of syncing files. The more complex ones would be Pandora's Box, D3/Disguise, 7 Sense, Watch Out. All these are much more complex, and they allow you to warp and to play multiple files at the same time. Not this guy. Don't ask him to warp.
Yeah.
But so we've used a lot of them. But sometimes we use ManMapper and Resolume, these prosumer mapping. ManMapper has one of the best warp in the business. It is phenomenally good.
I'm not going to lie. I have a full version of MadMapper on my computer, and when I need to do something down and dirty and really quick, I'll jump into MadMapper without even thinking twice about it.
Oh, absolutely. In the case of Cape Canaveral, the way we map is we align the projectors to each other first. So projectors, say that you triple stack the projectors, they obviously have to line up to each other. So we line them up using the internal warp of the projector. In this case, it would be Christie twist.
Yeah,
so we map, and we map the grid of the projector. So that lines up to each other, but it doesn't line up yet to the architecture. So for the architecture alignment, we use an external like D3, or in this case, it was QLab. Very simple, very proven system that works flawlessly.
Yep, theaters love it. I've used it again for a number of quick fixes, even in budgets. Again, shows that just don't have budgets to be able to afford the rental of a big piece of equipment or can afford to purchase a big piece of equipment.
Yeah. I want to talk briefly about content and a couple of people that are.
Yes, that is a very important part.
You could have all the technology in the world. If your show sucks, nobody will come. You know what? I didn't like the show, but your resolution was awesome.
We have some great artists on here, by the way. I just wanted to say hi to Cameron, one of the artists from Digital Graffiti. And we've got a little bit of a digital graffiti reunion going on here. We've got Holly and we got Christy and Cameron. So just wanted to say hi to them. But we've got some very creative people watching right now.
Contact me. We need content creators. So we have a couple of like 3 people that are always in the shadows because I'm a big talker. But Jerry Weil, Michael Corey, and Rob Oster, and Leaf and Arson to a certain extent are incredible 3D artists. Just this magician of Maya. We mostly use Maya here. For those who don't know what Maya is, it's a very powerful, impossibly hard to use 3D software.
It's not impossibly hard to use.
It's not, listen, Maya, it's not impossibly. Come on, Autodesk, apologies. I love you guys dearly. And every show is Maya based. It's not the most friendly user interface, but it is incredibly powerful and used by all the film companies in Hollywood here. And then another person I want to talk to is my wife, Julia, who I co-founded the project with. And another person who's behind the scenes, but she takes care of all the leads. And interestingly enough, once the lead, and she books so many leads, she's really a magician of that. But once the lead is booked, then I take over. And a lot of times the client goes, I like you, but could we get that nice woman we had at the beginning?
We don't like your attitude.
We don't like your attitude. I go, no, it's me. I suck, but you'll get a phenomenal show.
I hope that's not your marketing tagline.
No, it's not.
I suck, but you're going to get a phenomenal show.
But yeah, exactly. You will get a phenomenal show. Absolutely. Yes. That's the goal. Listen, at the end of the day, you got to make your audience laugh and cry. I always use Pixar as a great analogy. We want to be the Pixar projection mapping. Pixar, nobody will ever go to a Pixar movie saying the layers were perfect and the simulation of water was flawless. No, they go to Pixar because they want to see Woody and they want to, they want to have fun and laugh. That's the same thing with mapping.
For me, it's Wall-E. I always want to see Wall-E. I'll never get enough of Wall-E.
Woody, you mean?
No, Wall-E.
Did I say Wall-E? I meant Woody, but Woody and Wall-E.
Woody, yeah. I mean, Woody's also Pixar.
So that's at the end of the day, it's all about the content. It's only about the content. The technology is there to serve the content. If you have a great alignment,
that I think is a huge takeaway for pretty much everybody. We've always said content is king, and it always is and always will be.
And in the history of mankind, since Aristotle, content has been king.
Yeah, absolutely.
Nobody told Aristotle your stones are beautifully painted behind your actors. They said your actors are great. They really feel. I was there.
You were?
Well, I think so.
At least in the heart and soul. Heart and soul and mind.
That's right.
Well, Phil, I really wanted to thank you for your insights coming on the show with me today. It's been a real pleasure having you here. We have been showing some of the content that you've been doing, and we are going to show that again in post once we repost the episode. So for those of you who have been tuning in and watching, we are going to be showing some of Phil's content after we're done. But Phil, I believe the best way to reach you right now would be through your email. Is that correct? At info@PaintScaping?
Yeah, email or LinkedIn, Facebook, we're everywhere. Twitter, even TikTok. I had to have my daughter teach me TikTok. But yeah, we're everywhere.
And then website-wise would be www.paintscaping.com.
Yeah, we had to check to see availability before we named the company. It was available, so we took it in 2009.
That's another very important thing as well these days, is trying to find domain names that can match the company name. You might have thought of some amazing company name or brand name, but you can almost guarantee that somebody else has as well and has already snatched up the domain.
Yeah, you know what I should have done in 1990? I should have started selling apples in the corner and book apple.com.
Yeah, and eBay and Amazon and
yeah, but it's harder.
And Google.
It's harder to fight eBay, but Apple, you go, well, I'm selling Apple. I'm completely legit.
Well, I wanted to thank you so much for coming on. For those of you watching, thank you guys so much. We've also started a Patreon account to be able to help support this kind of thing that we've been doing every week. So we started it off as the Be the Hero campaign. So we would love if you guys have any additional to help us out. That would be awesome. So you could check that out on our website. And next week we have Isabel Salas that's going to be joining us on the show. She is a wonderful artist out of Montreal again, which I think there's a little theme that's going on here. She's been specializing in creating content through the use of AI. So that should be a really fun show to kind of be part of next week. We'd love to have you here. And Phil, I just wanted to thank you again so much for being with me. It's been an absolute pleasure having you here.
Pleasure. Awesome.
And for all of you back at home and all of you watching, thank you so much for your weekly support. And as I say every single time, every week, stay ahead of the curve, everybody. Thanks for watching.
Perfect.